You're listening to the Rural Press Club of Queensland's Lunch Series podcast.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome along to today's lunch. As Trent mentioned, we're going to hear from Martin Brook from Brook Farm in the northern New South Wales today. Just like to welcome Martin. As Trent mentioned, Brook Farm is a large macadamia producer, and he mentioned the number of trees, but they actually, a lot of their products, muesli bars, granola, sold all over the world. It's a great success story. But also, on top of that, with the native trees that the Brook Farm planted, they've created an ecosystem there that it's a lot of native animals there, insects, bees, koalas, platypus. On Martin's internet site it says 2 owls will eat 1,200 mice a year, so it's there's a lot happening in that ecosystem. And also the gin distillery is a great success story as well. So today Martin's going to speak to us about his business. In March 19 he also spoke at the Global Food Forum, where he said that encouraging farmers to value add or brand their unique produce should become a priority for agriculture. And with his company's passion, to produce the highest safety in food, their actual motto is to make a difference to our community and the environment. And I'm sure with that in mind, with the business and his passion there, we're in for an interesting speech today. So thank you, Martin. Welcome along. Thank you.
Firstly, thanks very much for the invite. This, in fact, is my second trip to Brisbane in 5 days. My AFL team, Melbourne, were heroically beaten by Brisbane by far too many points on Sunday. And anyway, being a Melbourne supporter, we are schooled in the art of losing. But I want to say this. In the 1950s, no one could beat us. And in 1964, the grand final, the famous grand final with Collingwood, we crushed the Magpies by 4 points. Anyway, you'll all be delighted to know I'm not going to be talking about football today, and it's best not to. Well, here we go. Where are we? Well, this photo was taken back in 2001, and it shows my son's bedroom filled with boxes of product. We knew we had to get serious when the product started expanding from the bedrooms into the living rooms. And I well remember my younger son, Eddie, asked if I could please move the growing pile of muesli boxes because he would like to watch his favourite TV program, Minus Obstacles. So, what possessed my much better half, wife Pam, and I to abandon reasonably secure occupations in Melbourne and dive into the mysterious world of premium food value adding at the tender age of 45 and 49. Ladies and gentlemen, age is a statistic. My elder sister, always known for her biting wit, suggested we should be consulting a fully qualified practicing psychiatrist. So why did we do it? In 1988, we bought a very sad, very run-down ex-dairy farm about 8 minutes from Byron Bay. For 100 years, dairy cattle had trodden the soil into complete submission. The 98 acres, or I've got to keep saying this, 36 hectares, was full of rocks, lantana, and a terrible weed tree called camphor laurel. People come to our area and they say, you've got the beaches, but the hinterland is amazing. It's so green. 95% of that green is a wee tree which was brought in from China in around 1860. Dominates the landscape, and it ain't good. And of course, we had the eastern brown snake, reckoned to be one of the world's most venomous snakes. I think it's up there with number 3 or 4. Anyway, it seemed that we had the vast majority of northern New South Wales brown snake population residing at our farm. Get bitten by an eastern brown snake, you have 30 minutes to get to a hospital. Welcome to the subtropics. My sister was probably right. We took advice, cleared the land, and wanted to plant 4,500 macadamias and 35,000 native trees, mostly subtropical. It was suggested that this would be excellent to plant near the watercourses and where the land was too steep for the macadamias. You know, it was one of those unique times when you walked into an Australian bank and said, I want X amount for developing a macadamia farm in northern New South Wales. And they replied, are you sure that's all you want? We can give you more. So we thought, why not? Let's do it. Let's do the lot. Let's get those other strange trees in we know nothing about. We had no idea what subtropical rainforest trees were. Little did we know that this decision would play such a critical role in the development of our other business, Cape Byron Distillery. And also, when I think back, to be perfectly honest with you, we were pretty naive when it came to macadamia farming. It was a steep learning curve. Thought for the day. Whenever a bank offers you bucket loads of generosity, my apologies to the bankers here, please, beware. Within 6 months of signing on the dotted line, interest rates catapulted to 23-24%. It was the recession we had to have. The dream of the sea change, leaving Melbourne for the subtropical paradise of Byron Bay, melted before our very eyes. We almost lost the lot. For a long, long decade, we had to stay in Melbourne and work incredibly hard to keep the dream alive. As I said, Pam was talking to me the other day. She was a fang doctor. So, she was doing Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon surgeries, terrific. Anyone had a tooth problem, 24 hours, and I was down there being the nurse. It was not a good time. It takes 10 years before you get a true commercial crop. It took us 10 years to dig ourselves out of a very deep hole. We moved north in 1999, and as luck would have it, it was a shocker of a year for macadamia farm gate prices. The processors were paying farmers a little over $2 a kilo. It's now $5.50. This incredibly low figure meant we were barely breaking even. And indeed, several farmers didn't even bother to harvest at all and left the crop on the ground. 20 years ago, the vast majority of Australia's only indigenous nut, the macadamia, was exported. Shells whipped off, vacuum packed, and shipped by container, exported overseas for other people to do clever things with. We couldn't believe it. In Australia, we are so good at digging things up and shipping them out. We are basically the quarry of the world. And as we know, we produce the world's finest merino wool, but I believe we have not one facility left in Australia to treat the wool. It's all sent overseas. I may be a bit biased, but I reckon the macadamia is not only the best tasting nut in the world, but it's certainly one of the healthiest. We scratched our heads. Why are we sending this truly remarkable Australian food overseas? Why aren't we producing and developing premium products for people to eat every day? Why aren't we quality value adding? The next 18 months were, to be perfectly honest, very stressful. My 12-year-old son, Will, declared he hated living in the subtropics. It was too hot. He hated his new school. The people were weird. He was really missing Melbourne and his mates, and he called us hippies. Our ex-Kimberley cattle-droving neighbour suggested getting our son a dog. A dog, we said? We did. It worked. He had someone else to complain to. We spent the next 8 months trying to produce a range of, wait for it, macadamia mayonnaises, including macadamia tartar sauce, all made with our newly discovered sensational macadamia oil. It really was special, and it still is special today. Problem: we couldn't naturally stabilise it. It's the one and only time we worked with Melbourne-based food technologists. In the end, they declared it's too natural. You have to use 545, 721, 344, in other words, synthetic additives and preservatives. We abandoned the mayonnaise. It was never going to work. From the outset, we declared we would only use GMO-free products, products free from additives and preservatives, and we would showcase the very, very best of Australian-grown ingredients. Call me biased, but I think our ingredients are simply the best in the world. But back in 1999-2000, things were looking a bit desperate. We were running out of money. It was tears again before bedtime. But there are times in your life when, hey, presto, the dawn breaks. We had one. Sitting down one evening, Pam and I were discussing the graveyard of failed dreams. The only positive was that none of these failed products ever got to market. We learned this golden rule: never go to market unless you are 99.9% happy with the product, confident that you have ironed out the shelf life issues, confident that you have a market for your product, and confident that you're not going to go broke. So one of us said, what is it that we miss about food in Melbourne? And we both agreed we couldn't find a good muesli. My much better half's dad, Mick Hull, had made his own mueslis for decade. 15, 16 jars of grains, brands, nuts filled his breakfast bench, dried fruits. At 82, he was still downhill skiing and climbing mountains. It must be good. He came first in the over-80s World Giant Slalom event in Innsbruck, but he got beaten on countback by an 85-year-old Austrian. He was furious. Then we got it. Brook Farm Macadamia Muesli was born. We sold our first products in November 2000 at our local market in Bangalore. You know, selling your product at local markets is one of the best ways to build a brand. It's terrific for refining and improving your sales and marketing skills, and it's a really economic way to test out new products. To have this spontaneous feedback was golden. The customer will tell you if they love it or loathe it. And it's all been a great training ground for my two sons. Will Brook today heads up Brook Farm, and Eddie, Fast Eddie as we call him, runs the Cape Byron Distillery. At the tender age of 12 and 9, both boys would come with us and help set up the market stall. When we were doing markets in Brisbane and in rural Queensland, we'd be up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30. They weren't too happy with that. When homework was completed, we would all hand label the bags in front of the TV. we did this for 3 to 4 years. If it was today, we would probably be arrested for child labour issues. Today, the two of us have now grown to 74, and the two products we launched in November 2000 has grown to 68. At the start of my talk, I mentioned our 30-year-old rainforest. It's home to an amazing collection of trees and plants. One of them is the Davidson plum, delicious fruit from a tree that looks like something out of Jurassic Park. The genesis of this tree goes back 180 million years, and one wag said to me the other day, "Stop, Brookie," we were down in our rainforest, and he said, "You can imagine a dinosaur rubbing its back up and down on this tree." We found someone who could dry down this amazing fruit, and Brook Farms Wild Berry Granola was born. This product is soon to replace our toasted muesli on all Qantas International first and business flights. The way we farm our story, I think, adds value to our story. We were one of the first to use biological methods to eradicate damaging, very nasty bugs. We started with the trichogramma wasps. Basically, it's the old Hollywood story of good versus evil. The good bug kills off the baddie, and we benefit by reducing the amount of chemicals we use on our farm. The eucalypt forests are home to owls and koalas, and I kid you not, a family of owls will consume, they reckon, 1,000 to 1,200 rats and mice a year. Not bad going. The bush rat loves macadamias, and the incredible hard macadamia shell presents no issues at all for this formidable rodent. Today we export to 15 countries, including Japan, China, Taiwan, Middle East and East Coast USA. We supply airlines such as Qantas, Virgin and now Emirates. Selling to airlines is a great way to stimulate your export sales and to work with the airlines so that you can tell your story to passengers on that plane. Because believe me, as we all know, living in Australia, they have time on their hands, especially on those long international flights. Now, this second business of ours, Cape Byron Distillery, is a classic when it comes to premium value adding. A bit earlier, I mentioned the 30,000 native trees we planted in 88, 89. Well, this inspired thought bubble has proven to be the foundations of our new 3-year-old business, Cape Byron Distillery. You know, in the early days, and we used to come up from Melbourne 2 or 3 times, 4 times a year, I became really interested in our rainforest and what was happening. I was amazed at the growth. They say in our part of the world with the rich red volcanic soils, if you put a stick in the ground, it would grow into a tree. That's not right. Anyway, let's press on. As the trees matured, I kept noticing these fascinating fruits, like the plum. They just kept appearing. In a reasonably short time, our landscape was transforming before our very eyes. Native animals such as koalas, wallabies, echidna, duck-billed platypus, plus stunningly beautiful birds like the yellow-tailed cockatoo appeared from nowhere. And I guess our distillery is an example of seizing the day and grasping the opportunities when they appear. Our second son, Eddie, was working for a premium drinks distributor in Sydney, selling fine whiskies and gins and premium exotic spirits. As luck would have it, he is given the task of taking his hero, the legendary Scottish distiller Jim McEwan, famous for his peat whiskies, who lives on the Hebrides island of Islay, on a 3-week master tour of Australia. Jim is the only distiller in the world to have won 3 times the coveted Master Distiller of the Year. He's famous for his peat whiskies, and Jim created probably the world's most successful boutique gin, The Botanist. In a very short time, Eddie and Jim become good mates. Jim asks Eddie, and I apologise for anybody with Scottish ancestry here, "What does your daddy and mummy do?" Ed tells Jim we value add to macadamias, and he tells him about our passion, rainforest regeneration. He says, "What? Does your dad grow jungle?" Eddie tells Jim about the botanicals. "Stop there," he says. "You can make gin." 2 years on, Jim returns, trains my boys in the gentle art of distillation. I'm the major tester, and it's a hell of a job. And a distillery is built. For the first time we took on a partner, Jim McEwen, the Bruce Springsteen of world distilling. He added real value to our business and still does. He was with us a couple of months ago because we started making whiskey. We produce 3 products. All these products are great examples of value adding. We think we were the first in the world to use macadamia in the production of our dry gin. Brookie's Byron Dry, named after me because I'm the gin drinker in the family, 25 botanicals, some from Northern Europe, all the rest sourced from our region, many from our own rainforest. We do a Davidson plum gin and a stunningly good macadamia wattle seed liqueur. So you've got that classic taste of the creamy taste of macadamias with a natural coffee and chocolate taste of the wattle seed. You can also have it as a long drink with ice and a squeeze of lime. I'm getting thirsty. One wit suggested our plum gin would be a perfect match for our granola. Now that's a breakfast. With Cape Byron Distillery, it gives us a great opportunity to connect with our customers. We have added value to this business by creating a premium tourism experience. A visit to our distillery is not just about sipping a gin and tonic overlooking the rainforest, and you start off by having one of those, of course. It's the story of how you can repair and regenerate a rainforest. The visitor is taken on a journey where they can feel, touch, and taste what we use in our gin. We give the customer a sense, a glimpse of what our landscape was like prior to 1850, when our land was part of the largest subtropical rainforest in Australia and one of the largest in the world. It took just 10 years to destroy it. Early this year, Qantas invited us to supply our Brookie's Byron Dry Gin to Qantas premium lounges in Australia and Heathrow Airport's first and business class lounges. We now sell our range throughout Australia, and 3 months ago, the UK and Scotland came on stream. And Eddie's over there now, and he should have been back a week ago, so I don't know what's going on. You can even buy our gin in Harrods, but you just have to remortgage your house. You know, creating and building businesses like ours that are not based in a major metropolitan area does create a few challenges. The tyranny of distance from major ports and your major domestic markets. And when you do have issues with pretty sophisticated food machinery, there aren't too many experts who live in Byron Bay. It sounds a bit strange with just 74 employees, but Brook Farm is one of the largest businesses in our region. And so your business becomes a very important cog in the life of the community. There are lots of waiting on tables and barista opportunities in the Byron Bay region, but not too many job opportunities that offer permanent, secure employment. From the very start of our business, we were convinced that premium value adding was the story of our survival, and we felt it was essential to produce products that customers would eat every day. And it's very, very important to build strong relationships with your suppliers. Important with that we work with them to produce the quality ingredient that we need to ensure premium, but to ensure consistency. These are challenging times with a climate that I believe is changing. Great relationships are critical. For us, never compromising on the quality of our product is a no-brainer. I know it's a challenge, but when I mentor start-up businesses, I stress the importance of endeavouring to be original. You know, anyone can copy other people's product. Where's the joy in that? And if you are intimately involved in the making of, I believe you take more ownership for the finished product, and you're in a much better place to sell that product. So Brook Farm is definitely not a marketing company. We are a genuine paddock-to-plate story. So back at the start of our business, we made a commitment to purchase ingredients from Australian farmers, as I said before, and producers. It's only in the case of ingredients like cranberries or sour tart cherries that are not grown in Australia, and we have to source these products from overseas, mostly America. So the other thing is that if you decide to go down the path of selling to the majors, ensure that you have built up a strong customer base prior to doing the deal. You will then be in a much stronger position to negotiate better pricing. We know so many great producers who unfortunately have fallen on the sword. There are larger markets, as we all know, to the north. And that whole story of real high-quality, value-added food is really a story they listen to. Food safety and credibility are key to selling into the China market. Australian premium producers are uniquely poised to take up this challenge. We are still regarded as clean and green. You know, there's a lot of talk about Australia being the food bowl of the world. We should see ourselves as the premium deli of the world. Our commodity-focused thinking, I feel, clouds the possibility for effective, imaginative value-adding. Now, it's so important to engage your customer. Bring them along on your journey, value them. They are so important. And use social media, that I don't know practically anything about, to start the conversation, and never see the people who come and work for you as units of labour. They are as important as your products and your customers. Now ensure you have an authentic, believable story. Because in today's ever-changing social media world, telling porkies is not advisable. I might add, this does not apply to the current President of the United States of America, who I believe has upset the state of Washington because 4th of July, he wants to put tanks on the street. Don't you love him? So what we've noticed over the last 20 years is an ever-increasing number of customers who really want to know where their food comes from and how it is grown and how it is made. There is this unfortunate phenomenon called greenwashing. Basically, that's all about expanding the truth around your environmental sustainable story. I need a drink. It's not gin, is it? No. Cheers. That's better. Sustainable story. This was really brought home to me when our master distributors and importers from China announced they were coming for a visit. We thought the owner and the head of sales from Shanghai would just visit. Anyway, he brought the entire crew. What they wanted to see first was not our bakehouse, not our factory, nor our distribution centres. They wanted to see if the farm in Brook Farm actually existed. And the second thing they wanted to see was, did you really have a 35,000 tree rainforest? I firmly believe that being an advocate for a healthier, more sustainable world not only ticks the good corporate citizen box, but adds real value to your business. In a world that now accepts that the environment is a critical part of the equation, you will, as a person, as a company, seem to be taking real steps to reduce your carbon footprint. In turn, and we've seen it, you will encourage others to take up the challenge. We saw this when we fixed 288 solar panels on our main bakehouse. And today we generate enough electricity to power 35 homes. You know, about 9 months ago, I had a real light bulb moment. Our distillery business have made significant progress in a short amount of time, and I had run out of land to plant the botanicals for the gin. Yes, more debt. I had to buy more land. The banks now love us again. Around this time, I happened to meet a fellow macadamia farmer, a pretty traditional macadamia farmer. Anyway, we started talking about healthy soils and carbon capture. I know, I can see it in your faces. He's from Byron Bay. I want to say from the start, I do not own a cheesecloth shirt. I do not think silk and tofu is the pathway to inner peace and salvation, nor do I bury cow horns at midnight by the light of a full moon with very little clothes on. And with this body, you wouldn't do that anyway. My fellow farmer suggested I kick off my education, and I was amazed it came from him. He said, "Brookie, read this book. It's got an interesting title. It's called The Cry of the Reed Warbler, and it was written by a farmer by the name of Charles Massey." Charles was what you'd call a really conventional sheep and wheat farmer. Anyway, I reluctantly read it. It was a game changer for me. He also guided me, the farmer, to watch some videos that he was sent from incredibly smart, effective US soil scientists. Now, a fair amount of this research is being undertaken in New Mexico and Arizona. They have literally made the desert boom. One of the videos was from one of the world's leading soil scientists, a guy by the name of Ray Archuleta. He had, and this was in the video, he had 2 very large glass containers. One filled with traditional industrialized soil, heavily tilled, synthetic fertilizers, and all the rest. The other, a 10-year-old no-till soil in the other glass container that had been naturally regenerated with different range of plants that over time have brought the worms and the other goodies, giving life back to this soil. Water gets poured in. In the first tank, it rushes straight through. The second, poured in, a drip eventually appears. Building great soils captures water and retains it. And this is the road we are taking. Charles Massey's book is the story of how we have stuffed our land and how my lot, bloody Poms, when they arrived on these shores, started the decline. This was then ably assisted by an industrialized approach to farming. The success of regenerative farming can be really advanced by cell grazing your cattle. So in our place, every 2 to 3 days, cattle will be rotated on our land. What is produced from the rear end of a cow is critical to the building of healthy soils. This would be an important counter, I think, to the rising, crazy no-meat movement. Cattle are a critical part of the regenerative and environmental story. About 6 weeks ago, and I don't know if any of you picked it up, a special report drawing upon 15,000 scientific and government sources basically said, we're in big trouble. The United Nations Global Assessment of Environmental Health, I'm sorry to say, makes for grim reading. Biodiversity declining at an unprecedented rate. 1 million species at risk of extinction. Human populations in jeopardy if the trajectory is not reversed. And throw in this one. Australia has the highest rate of mammal extinctions in the world and is the 4th worst for biodiversity loss globally. But this is a fact. And I'm sorry if I upset a few people in the room here. I apologise. But Australia has one of the highest rates of land clearing in the world. This is the home for native animals, birds, insects and bees, this natural vegetation. And it's critically important for pollination and the whole essential food production. In Queensland, there is both the most clearing and the base data on clearing of all Australia. Natural vegetation, including trees, is being bulldozed at a phenomenal rate. About 395,000 hectares of native vegetation was cleared in 2015-16, 33% more compared with the previous year. That equates to more than 1,500 football fields worth of native woodland and scrub being cleared each and every day in Queensland. And despite the re-elected Labor government promising change to rein it in, notifications of planned land clearing in Queensland have jumped a further 30%. You see, in my incredible naive way, I thought that maybe planting 35,000 trees plus the Maccas was an incredible practical way to capture carbon. It is. And it's one of the key reasons, of course, why our planet is warming at the rate it is. Well, the science is now out. By creating healthy soils, it's up to 60% more effective in capturing carbon and in turn slowing down climate change. Last Thursday, my 3rd grandchild was born, and 6 hours later, the old boy was allowed to hold this new addition to the clan. I was gazing down at this beautiful baby, and I thought, you know, we really owe it to the next generation to do all we can to create a safe, sustainable environment, a safe, sustainable world. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's not all doom and gloom. We can slow things down, we can repair, we can effect real change. Now that's value adding. And this, I don't know where it is, and this is the future of Brook Farm. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to the Rural Press Club of Queensland's Lunch Series podcast. To book a ticket to our next event, visit our website at ruralpressclub.com.au. Music supplied by audionautics.com.